Hey, what's going on everyone? Working on the 99 Honda Accord again today. Going to be replacing the valve cover gaskets along with pulling the intake and cleaning that out because I'm getting a P0401 code for the EGR system. So really quick, I just want to show you what codes I'm getting. They're both the same, P0401, and it's saying the EGR system has insufficient flow, and you can see it's the same thing on that one as well. First thing you'll want to do is go ahead and pop your hood. And then next, just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the negative battery cable. Let's take a 13mm. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start removing some of this plastic cover on the engine here. And there used to be one with a Honda logo on here, but that must have fell off somewhere. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pull the spark plug wires. And as you can see, on these wires, they have the numbers for the cylinder marked. Like that one says 5, and this one says 6. So if yours aren't marked, you may want to find a way to mark them, but they're also a certain length as well. So we'll go ahead and pull those. Then grab you a 10mm. You got 2 bolts here. And then on the back side here, kind of the same thing. Plug wires. Then you got this little clip here you can undo them from. Tuck those out of the way. And then same thing, you got 2 10mm bolts there. Let's go ahead and remove those. And then you got a hose over here. And then you got a hose over here that's connected to that cover as well. So snap that out of there. And then on the back side here, you got a 10mm bolt holding your power steering pressure hose on. So before I go ahead and start removing anything else, I'm going to go ahead and take some compressed air, blow all this out. As you can see, there's quite a bit of debris in here, dust and dirt. So I'm going to go ahead and blow that stuff off first. Next, we'll go ahead and remove some of these vacuum hoses and unplug the sensor from the intake on the back side here. And then you should be able to just pull this PCV valve out, just pull up on it. And then you can go ahead and check it. As long as you hear that rattle, you know it's good. And I'll probably go ahead and pull this off and clean it with some brake clean, or just buy a whole new PCV valve. And then you can barely hear it rattling when you shake it, and you can see how clogged up it is. So it looks like this PCV valve is bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy a new one. And then on the front valve cover, you got a hose right here. Go ahead and remove that. And then on the passenger side here by the belt, you got another hose that's going into the intake that we need to remove. So next I'm going to go ahead and remove this air filter cover and along with the intake tube, just to make it easier to get this throttle body disconnected from the intake. So just grab an 8mm, pull out your air filter housing bolts here. Then you got various hoses here. You want to just pop out of here. This one should just pull out. Then you can disconnect this throttle body sensor here. Get that out of the way. And then you got one more hose right here on the back side that pulls off. And then go ahead and take a Phillips, loosen that hose clamp there. And you should be able to pop this off now. And then you can get this up out of the way. So with that off, that gives us a lot better access to getting this throttle body off of here. And you're going to have two nuts on the top here, which are going to be 12mm, one right there and one right here. And then you have two bolts, which is going to be one down here, and then this one's kind of hard to see, but it's just opposite of that other one down there. Now let's see if we can just pull this throttle body off a little ways here. And then just be careful of that gasket on there. It looks like it's sticking a little bit. And I'll just leave it like that for now. And we'll go ahead and get our top bolts out of here. Alright, so now we should be ready to undo the intake bolts here. And according to Honda, there's a certain way you need to unscrew these, and same as tightening them. But you want to go from 9 to 1. As you can see, I just took a Sharpie and kind of marked the numbers on them. But the first one you're going to do is the 9, which is right here. And then come over here to 8. And then the 7. Followed by back over here to 6. Back over here to 5. And then 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'll go ahead and take those off. So now with those out, we should be able to lift the intake off and out of the throttle body here. And this was, as soon as I undid all those bolts, it was loose. So I don't know if some of them maybe you got to pop up on them, but this one was loose. So let's see if we can lift up, because you got to get them out of these studs here. And then see if we can slide it off here. Just like that. And as you can see, that is probably why we're getting that code. You can see all that carbon just built up in there, which goes to the EGR. But I'm gonna go ahead and grab my vacuum real quick and suck some of this up, and then I'll take this intake gasket off. I just don't want any of that stuff falling down into there. Alright, so I got that vacuumed out, all that debris. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this intake gasket, and haven't decided whether I'm going to reuse it or go price out a new one yet. And I'll probably take some rags and cover that up so nothing falls down in there. But again, there's another look at that carbon that's built up in there. So now taking a look at the intake, you can see why it was throwing that code, that EGR, insufficient flow there, because that is pretty much all the way clogged. There's just a little tiny hole there. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up using a pick, maybe a flathead screwdriver, and some brake cleaner or carb cleaner, and get that cleaned up as best as I can. And then I'm going to also remove this right here where all them hoses were going to, and see if that needs cleaned as well. You can see how dirty that is too, so I'll go ahead and clean that up as well. Alright, so as you can see, got that all cleaned out. Looks a lot better. And also got that all cleaned out, so that looks a lot better. And same with down in there. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, because there still could be a little bit of carb cleaner inside the intake there. And while that's drying, I'll go ahead and start on the valve cover gaskets. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and remove our valve cover. And you got 5 10mm bolts that we need to remove. So now let's see if we can lift this off of here. That's on there pretty good. See if I can use a mallet here. Try to break that free a little bit. I'm going to use a flathead here. Try going right here. Just kind of twist it. You don't want to mess up the cylinder head there though. So I just kind of turned it like that. That loosened it. And it looks like we're stuck on the bottom here. So let's kind of do the same thing. Set the camera down so I can use both hands here. There we go. So go ahead and remove that. Alright, so taking a look at the valve cover here. Let's go ahead and pull this gasket. This little tab here. Man, that seems to be stuck in there pretty good. Let me try some needle nose. Try a flathead here and see if we can get under there without damaging the gasket surface. There we go. And I don't know if you can see it, but see how dry rotted it is, and it's just falling apart as I'm pulling it. So next I'm going to try to get these spark plug tubes out of here. And I'm just going to try a flathead. Just go underneath here without damaging the valve cover itself. So I'm just going to try sticking under here, and then I'll pry and see if it'll pop out of here. Just like that. Alright, got those out. So before I go ahead and start putting in the new gasket, I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up. Same with around here. And then also just clean up this valve cover really good. Alright, so as you can see, got it cleaned up a little bit better. Went ahead and cleaned all this up where the gasket goes in at. And I guess we can go ahead and remove the rest of these. Just pull on them. So now we should be ready to install our tube seals here. And I just went with the Felpro kit, which I'll put a link in the description so you can check that out. And then I found an old 1¼ inch socket, which, as you can see, fits around there pretty good. So I think I'm going to hit on this to get those seals seated in there. And then just going to take a little dielectric grease, or you can use some white lithium grease, just to put around the seal here, make it easier when it's popping in there. Go ahead and sit your seal kind of in there somewhat, and grab your socket and a hammer and see if we can smack that in there. So just kind of like that. Go ahead and do the other two. And then if you can see it's not fully seated, like right in here, it's because sometimes the socket gets in the way right here of this piece. So if you have to, just kind of tilt your socket and then go ahead and hit it to drive it down the rest of the way. Okay, and as you can see, now we're all the way down on all three of those. And then next, go ahead and take your valve cover gasket here. And I'm just going to put this in the same spot as it was down here. So we can go ahead and start putting this in. Next you can go ahead and do your bolt gaskets here. And these are really hard to get off because these gaskets are so hard and dried up. So I'm just taking a knife. What I'm doing is just kind of slicing into it. And then you should be able to rip it off of there. And then that just comes off. Grab your new ones. And then just go ahead and push them through. Just like that. So before I go ahead and put our cover back on, I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up along the gasket surface just with some brake clean and a rag, and just make sure nothing falls down in there while you're doing that. Alright, so now we should be ready to put our valve cover back on. Again, make sure this surface is nice and clean. And I forgot to mention, now would be a good time to replace these spark plugs if you needed it. I did these about 4 months ago, so those are still good. So go ahead and grab your gasket or your cover, and we need to get around these spark plug tubes here first. So kind of set it on here, and then just kind of look at the spark plug tubes here and try to get your gasket around those tubes there without damaging the gasket. You may have to just kind of stick your finger in there until you see the gold part of it, just to make sure that gasket's around those tubes. So that looks good, kind of like that. And then go ahead and grab your bolts. And then you have one short one which goes on the top here. So go ahead and get these all started. And then go ahead and hand tighten them. And we'll do our final torque after they're hand tightened. And then the sequence you want to tighten them is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you go ahead and torque them to 104.4 inch-pounds, or I think that's equal to like 8.7 foot-pounds. So go ahead and tighten those, same order. And then I'm just going to go over them one more time. Alright, so with the front valve cover done, let's go ahead and move on to the back. And you can go ahead and just get this hose out of the way. And I'm actually going to spray some cleaner in there and clean that out before I put it back on. And then just like the front one, you got one bolt here, another one here, here, and then 2 right here, which will be the 10 millimeters. And just like the front, Hopefully this one comes off easy, but doesn't look like it. See if I can tap on it. Looks like I'm gonna have to use a screwdriver again. Get up under here, pry it. Work. It's almost there, just gotta get that bottom part broken loose. There we go. Like that. Alright, so as you can see, this valve cover does not look that good. I got a lot of oil sludge built up on here. But let's go ahead and replace it anyway. So go ahead and pull the rest of these out. And let's go ahead and try and remove this gasket. See if this one comes off any easier. Doesn't look like it. And then again, our seals. Pop them out of there. And that didn't work too well on that one. Let's try one of these other ones here. Like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean this up again, and then I'll come back. Alright, so as you can see, I got a little bit cleaned up. It's not the greatest, but this side looks a lot better. And like I said, there's a lot of sludge buildup in here, so I think once I get this back together, I'm going to go ahead and change the oil and maybe add some Marvel mystery oil or something to do a little bit of an engine clean on this car here. But anyways, let's go ahead and put our seals in here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and remove this because it's kind of getting in the way for when I go to hammering them seals. Just don't want to break it. So like I said, some white lithium grease or dielectric grease works. Plus it helps protect the rubber as well. Alright, so we got all them in. And of course, go ahead and grab your new gasket and put that on. Flip it back over, and we'll put our bracket back on here. Alright, so I went ahead and got my gasket surface all clean, and should be ready to put our valve cover back on. And this side's going to be harder to see your spark plug tubes. You want to get those lined up first. And let's see if I can see them from back here or not. See them a little bit. Just use a flashlight, and again, get those gaskets around the spark plug tubes there. So I think right there we're good. And then same thing, got your small one here on top. And then as you're doing this, be careful because these cross thread real easy into the head there. Then go ahead and tighten them down, same pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then go ahead and torque them again. 104.4 inch-pounds or 8.7 foot-pounds. So before I go ahead and put the intake back on, I'm just going to spray this throttle body a little bit while it's open here. And again, just using some carb cleaner, throttle body cleaner. And you can see how dirty it is. So I'm just going to kind of put a rag under here. Alright, so next we'll go ahead and install the intake. So go ahead and remove your rag out of here. Make sure nothing falls down in there. And then just make sure that's nice and clean. I'm going to grab some brake fluid. And just wipe down this surface here where the gasket goes. And then I'm going to go ahead and reuse my old gasket. You should probably use a new one. I just checked with the parts stores nearby, and there's none nearby. It's nearest one's like 30 or 40 miles away. So I'm just going to go ahead and reuse this. I cleaned it up a little bit with some brake clean, and we should be good to go here. Just got to line it up, your EGR hole right there. Make sure that sits on there good. And then with our intake dry, go ahead and put this back on here. Make sure that's all cleaned up. And then don't forget to put this tube back on here. I think it was kind of like that, just laying on top of the valve cover here. So then go ahead and grab your intake. And let's put that back on here. And then watch your throttle body gasket there. Which you may have to finagle here. Stick it in the throttle body first, and then go ahead and set your intake on. Like that. Then go ahead and grab your intake bolts and nuts. And we'll start putting them on. That goes there, along with washers. And then the nuts. And then your nut with the washer built in goes over here on the far end. And then the rest of your bolts, which are all the same length. And then I'll go ahead and tighten these. And again, I marked them 1 through 9. So go ahead and just kind of hand tighten them by hand in that sequence. Then go ahead and grab your torque wrench, and Honda calls for 16 foot-pounds on these bolts here. So then just start at your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I'll just go over them one more time just to make sure. Next, we'll go ahead and tighten up our throttle body. Let's go ahead and grab your 2 nuts and your 2 bolts. Then again, grab your torque wrench, and these are going to be same as the intake bolts, 16 foot-pounds. Then go ahead and grab your air filter. Go ahead and connect this hose back up. So Now we can start connecting some of these hoses back here as well. And I wasn't able to go get a PCV valve, so I did spray some brake clean in this, and you can hear it rattling now, so hopefully it'll be okay. If not, I'll go ahead and buy a new one or order one and have it shipped here. So go ahead and stick that back on here. And then just push down in there, plug in the sensor, plug in your vacuum hose here. And then don't forget about this hose here on the passenger side by the belt. Then go ahead and grab your spark plug wires. And the cylinder number is going to be 1 towards the passenger, 2 in the middle, and then 3 on the drivers. So like I said, these were already marked, but they're also a certain length, so it's kind of not too hard to get them messed up. And then you can go ahead and put your wires back in this little bracket here. And then grab your 10mm. Let's put our power steering pressure hose back on here. Start putting some of our covers on here. Remember, as you notice, these are broke from the previous owner, I guess. But you're supposed to pull these out and then remove this. But like I said, this one's broke. Back side here. And then grab your 4, 5, and 6 spark plug wires. This one's going to be 4, 5, and 6. Then go ahead and grab your other cover. And then of course the last cover, and then just make sure everything's plugged in before you put this back on. And then lastly, go ahead and connect your negative battery cable. Alright, so that's going to do it for the video. Like I said earlier, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick oil change on this. I like to do that whenever I replace the valve cover gaskets, just to be safe. And then I'll hook up my scanner and go ahead and delete that EGR code that it was popping up with. Hopefully that takes care of it. And then I'll start it and check for leaks. Again, this was a 1999 Honda Accord, and I went ahead and replaced the valve cover gaskets along with cleaning the intake due to the P0401 code I was getting for the EGR system. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check it out. I got a few more videos on this car and a couple more to come. So go ahead and check those out. And until next time, thanks.